It's been a game-changing year. Nvidia literally created a new industry, a new market with its chips. It's the only company that really was leaning into that avenue with a full stack approach right from the beginning.
Nvidia is now the largest US company when 5 years ago it wasn't even in the top 20. So what happens next? What does this mean for investors? Let's dive in. It's the race to the top everyone has watched for months, and many have even predicted, but Nvidia has finally become the world's most valuable company. Let's talk about just how big of a deal this is. What does it mean for a company to hold that top spot?
Well, this is kind of similar to what we talked about when we talked about with stock splits. It really shouldn't do much for the stock price, but it does tend to increase investor sentiment. And in that case, that can drive the stock price higher. Plus, institutions like hedge funds now will feel like they have to make sure that they have an ample position in a stock like Nvidia, and that could also increase. That could also make the share price go even higher.
Now, you guys, we've talked about this before, but what's truly remarkable to me, at least, is just how fast Nvidia rose to this level, especially when you're thinking about where the chip maker was just a few years ago.
Yeah, it really has. And I think that right now, what could possibly be driving the stock higher kind of goes along with what Chris said is FOMO, fear of missing out. I mean, it really has come out of nowhere. Nvidia has created a brand new market with AI and its chips. We don't know how high it's going to get. And there's a lot of reasons for investors to want to get in before the run is over with.
Yeah, I want to talk about this rise just a little bit more. I mean, it's happened very quickly, as we've discussed. But last year, it was the 5th biggest company in the world. Just 2 years ago, it was the 10th. And 5 years ago, it wasn't even on the charts in the top 20. So obviously, that quick rise is great news for investors who jumped on the stock maybe a year or more ago. But what does the company's new position as the highest valued in the world mean maybe for current investors or new investors?
So similar to what I was saying at the beginning, I don't know if it means really that much, but you now have the market cap combined with a more accessible stock price after the split. It makes the stock certainly more inviting for investors who were on the sidelines because they saw that $1,600 price tag and thought it was too much. As Thomas actually used the word really correctly, it makes it really easy now for investors to indulge that FOMO. They can sit there and say, boy, I really want to get into Nvidia, and now the price is where I want it to be. That can cause more money to flow into the stock.
Yeah, right. I see that the high prices may also cause some volatility.
Yeah.
People that have got 1,000 or 2,000% gain will need to reallocate. I mean, they're going to see the stock price going higher, but if it becomes too large a position in their portfolio or in an index fund or some other fund where people need to keep their investments balanced, it will definitely cause some selling.
So we have the FOMO aspect here, as you mentioned, but are there any other reasons that would draw investors to the table for Nvidia?
Well, like I said before, it's been a game-changing year. Nvidia literally created a new industry, a new market with its chips. It's the only company that really was leaning into that avenue with a full stack approach right from the beginning. So I think that it's really it's a secular story we're watching, and it really has quite a while to play out.
Now, there's been quite a bit of news this week from some major ETFs switching billions of dollars from Apple to Nvidia. So how common is it to see this kind of mass ETF change, and what maybe impact does that have both on Nvidia and Apple?
Well, it's really not that surprising a change because ETFs and indices are always reconstituting their holdings to rebalance them, just like we said. And specifically for Nvidia and Apple, what it would mean is that a lot of institutional holders will need to trim their Apple positions, put some pressure on that stock in order to buy some more Nvidia positions and help lift that stock higher.
So I want to talk more about the race that's going on here. This summer really has been just that. We've been seeing Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia all vying for that top stock, valued stock. Is it possible that we could see the top player continue to rotate or change throughout the rest of the year? Or is Nvidia kind of just have this in the bag now?
Oh, no, I think it's going to change repeatedly throughout the year and over the next couple of years. You got to think that all three of these companies are Nvidia, you said Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft. Yeah, they're all leading players in this AI race. They all report earnings at different times in the cycle. They've all got different news cycles. So what I see them doing is leapfrogging over each other multiple times throughout the year and over the next few years as they post earnings beats and they give new guidance and new deals are made and the AI story continues to unfold.
Well, we'll be watching that game of leapfrog right here at MarketBeat. But looking back, how kind of common is it to see the change in the top company? I mean, you mentioned the variance of when their earnings are coming out, that kind of thing. But is it typical to see the highest valued company maybe hold that position for months or years at a time? Or is it kind of more of that constant rotation?
Yeah, I think that's what makes what's going on right now really interesting, is because, you know, investors hate to use the phrase "this time it's different," but this time really is really kind of different, because it's not very common for a stock like Microsoft that has a $3 trillion market cap to get caught by another stock that seemingly comes out of nowhere. And it's really odd when you have three stocks that are just like, as Thomas was saying, it's kind of in a position where they could leapfrog each other. Because when you think about it, you know, a company's market cap comes down to two things and two things only. It's the share price with the number of outstanding shares. And it's kind of tough for companies to reach even that 1 trillion mark, let alone get to 3 trillion where these three companies are. And the driver of all this is AI. That's been a disruptive innovation into the market. And it's kind of caught a lot of investors off guard, and investors are scrambling to get into it. Institutions are scrambling to get into it. I'm not necessarily seeing other companies getting into this race, but I do think you're going to see these three companies in this position for quite a while.
Right. And speaking to the market cap, they're all within like a tenth or 2/10 of $1 trillion of each other. I mean, tenth of $1 trillion is quite a lot of money for us, but in the eyes of the market, it would take them about a half a minute for that to change, you know. So they're real close together. There's a lot of opportunity for that leapfrogging to happen.
Right, but it's going to take a lot for another company to come in there right now.
Yeah, right. So it's
Because there's so
unlikely that
many
another
dollars.
company, another company won't join the 3 trillion group with them necessarily, but the three of them together are going to be kind of grouped together.
Yep.
For a while, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about what's going to happen next, but first I want to show investors how they can get the latest stock news right at their fingertips. Want to keep your finger on the pulse of the market? Text the word YouTube to 68285, that's 68285, and get free breaking news alerts from MarketBeat for the stocks that matter most to you. Don't miss out on crucial updates, stay informed, and stay ahead. All right, guys, so what does happen next? Nvidia is clearly continuing to soar, but is the sky really the limit for this company? I mean, do you see any end to its growth, or do you think it's possible that Nvidia is going to leave other companies behind, set a new bar for what is the highest valued company? What does that look like right now?
Well, right, I would say that there is an end to the growth. It cannot go on forever. This is too big of a story. But as I mentioned earlier, we're not really sure where that top is. Like CEO Jensen Huang said last year, there's like over $1 trillion of infrastructure being upgraded. So like there's two stories at play. Cloud is growing, but it's also being upgraded. And so until that upgrade cycle is finished, which might not happen for 5 or 10 years because they've already got the second and third and fourth generations of AI chips coming down the pipeline, that's going to be a massive upgrade cycle for 5 or 10 years. So it could be quite a long time before we see this bubble, this AI bubble, reach its peak and zenith and pop.
Right. I think there's going to be a normalization with Nvidia as AI moves away from hardware, more towards software. But the demand for hardware is going to be there. The only question is going to be when other companies like AMD start to make significant inroads into Nvidia's market share, and who knows when that will be. As Thomas said, this could be a 5-10 year down the road story.
Right. I'm glad Chris mentioned the hardware and software side of the story. Hardware is definitely the driver of the gains this year, but Nvidia is the only leading full stack player. So there's all about software, and that's why they're getting the boost. They've got the best chips, but they've also got the software to power it. And they're providing so many services to the AI industry and infrastructure and in AI services and apps and whatnot that it's just gonna keep growing. Nvidia's story has changed. It's switching. It's making a shift the way Oracle shifted and Microsoft shifted from legacy businesses to its new cloud-based services business.
Yes, the story is changing and we're going to stay on top of that right here at MarketBeat. So please stay tuned for more. Don't forget to check out our resources I have linked for you down below. Thanks for the great information, guys. We'll be right back here for more. Happy investing.